the card did deliver. And first of all, I want to talk about Jamahal Hill against Alex Pereira. For me, Jamahal Hill did get humbled. And a lot of you might be like, but he was trying to sell the fight. Yes, he was, but he was doing it in a way where he went a bit over the top at times. Like, if you looked at him in the press conferences and stuff, like even when the reporters, I know they ask like really boring and cringy questions, like John Morgan, ... He just gets a bit irritable and he seems like he's on the verge of tears every minute. But against Alex Pereira, I know that's irrelevant. He actually looked quite good earlier on, but you can look good earlier on, but if you get knocked out in the first round, that's irrelevant. But it was the way he approached the fight with leg kicks and trying to fight at Alex Pereira's game, which he did do well at. Like, if you look at the kicking stats, he landed more than Pereira, but like I said again, that is irrelevant, but I'm just bringing that up because you'll notice that Jamahal Hill, and I can't believe I didn't pick this up earlier, when you are watching him strike, you'll notice that when he's not throwing the jab and he's looking to throw off his backhand, like what boxers do, you need to keep that hand, especially when you're a southpaw and your leg is closer to the orthodox stance of Alex Pereira, you need to keep that right hand tight because that left hook's going to be open, and we all know how good Alex Pereira is at doing the left hook and how sneaky he's able to like throw punches and kicks by not even telegraphing them. He doesn't learn. He still keeps his hands down and he's looking to fire off the backhand with his left, and he looks very comfortable in there. And one thing against Alex Pereira, which you can't be at times, is too comfortable. You need to be circling away from the cage and not allowing yourself to have your back up against the cage. Because with Jamahal Hill, when the pressure was coming towards him, you could see he was starting to struggle a little bit, which is why with Herb Dean, he was like, no, I want to carry on fighting. And then bang, hits him with that left hook, which at first I thought was an uppercut because Pereira's got a way of throwing the hook where he can disguise it like an uppercut and he can disguise like these strikes. But the way he did it was he comes down low, so it's kind of coming up diagonally and it's not coming up like vertically. And then you just see it scuff the nose, and that's what shocked me the most because Jamahal Hill's known for having a decent chin. Remember when Paul Craig had him on the ground, trapped, and he was taking like a beating and he didn't get knocked out? Look at how he's been dealing with these light heavyweights. He's made them look better than they actually are. Like, if you're watching Jamahal Hill in this fight, he looks like he's nothing special because in that Jan Blachowicz fight, it looked like Pereira's power wasn't as good as what it was at middleweight. But then we saw the fight with Yuri Prochazka and we saw that the power is still there. And you're seeing that he is knocking guys out, not just with relying on athleticism. It's all the technique, the placement of the punch. And that's what's making him good at this division. And honestly, for me, Jamahal Hill, I want to see him fight at Yuri Prochazka. I think a lot of people will want to see that. But I'm at the point where, after watching Yuri Prochazka's fight, which I'll get into later, I'm still thinking now 50-50. I was way more confident in Jamahal Hill before, but that's how one fight can change your opinion based on how I believe the fight can go now. But for Pereira, it's got to be Ankalaev. And if Ankalaev doesn't want to do it, which I don't know why he wouldn't, because that is a very good matchup for him, because the wrestling, we are yet to see Pereira fight someone who is extremely good at grappling. And the guy who beat him in his debut, Kwame Tony, again, I believe he got signed up by the UFC. I think so. He might not have. But I haven't seen him fight in a while. And I just checked right now. He has not had a fight in over 2 years. He was meant to fight Abdul Abarakurmov. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but that's the guy in PFL who's from France who looks so good recently. And eventually will probably end up in the UFC because you know how Dana White loves his Dagestani fighters. But I believe if you give an opponent who's good at grappling, we're going to actually see how good Pereira's takedown defense is, because we're always talking about Khamzat Chimaev, but that's a long, long away now. Like, he's got his own career to worry about. And now we've got Pereira taking on all these opponents, making his resume look really good. I believe the fight we've either got to do is Ankalaev, or if he really wants to do this, which I wouldn't mind seeing either, Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira, if he wants to move up. But I'll give you two of the options. The most likely situation would be Ankalaev, but I would be more interested in watching a fight with him and Tom Aspinall. One, because Tom Aspinall's going to be inactive all year at this rate. John Jones is injured, and then you've got people like Stipe Miocic waiting on the fight of John Jones. You got Cyril Gane ducking Tom Aspinall, and it just puts him in a situation where he's not going to want to fight really low down, risk his ranking, and then the potential John Jones fight's out the window. Whereas you can have a fight against a guy like Alex Pereira, who's very popular, and boost your popularity and your star ability by fighting him. And I believe Tom Aspinall is a very good matchup for him. The only thing you'd have to worry about with Tom Aspinall and an Alex Pereira is, does Tom Aspinall mess about on the feet? You got away with it with Pavlovich, and I'll say why he's very lucky in that fight, because you saw earlier on, he took a massive strike that, because he's got a granite chin, he survived. But think about Pereira. His placement and accuracy, I'd say, is better than Pavlovich. He might not have more power than Pavlovich due to the fact that he doesn't weigh as much, but I believe the placement of him, Alex Pereira, and Tom Aspinall leaving his chin up in the air sometimes when he's jumping into combinations, he could get left hooked out cold. That's why I'm saying he has to go into that fight and grapple. Because if he does, like I said, Alex Pereira's not being tested in the grappling department enough. Tom Aspinall would be the guy where, if he can do it, he will run through him like he did Volkov. Because as soon as the fight hits the mat, fight will be done. Because Alex Pereira, again, we haven't seen him do much off his back. We've seen him against Adesanya go for like a takedown. We've seen him have his back taken. But you've got to remember, Jan Blachowicz, I do not rate his jiu-jitsu as well as a guy like Tom Aspinall, plus the size of him. And when you look at the submissions that Tom Aspinall gets when he does it, very impressive. That's what I'm saying. That fight for Alex Pereira, he should want to avoid it, but if he really wants to take the step up and try and go for like 3 belt status, which he won't get by beating Tom Aspinall, but if he did beat him, it would then put him in contention for an actual title. There you go. But honestly, Jamahal Hill, I have no words for him. I don't know why I've picked him. I've had an absolute mare on the card, apart from the main card, apart from the main event, prelims, shocker. But that's what I've got to say about this fight. Right, Max Holloway versus Gaethje. I'm not talking about Weili Zhang Xiaojunnan. I'm sorry. We all saw what happened. She got submitted in the first round. Salt saved her. She got a knockdown fair enough, but then she ends up getting out-grappled and losing a decision. That's all I want to say about that. That took away the momentum from the fight here. So, Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. Oh my god. This is the only fight I can say I predicted perfectly in the card. I got round 5 KO. Didn't put anything on it. But what I was impressed about by Max Holloway is, me earlier on, before the predictions, I was saying, I don't think Max Holloway's got a chance. He gets hit more and more now. Gaethje's become more defensive, a great counter-striker where if he touches you on the chin, he's still got the power to put you down. And one thing I need to bring up as well, I'm not hearing a lot of people talking about this. Like, I'm not bothered about the BMF belt or anything. I find it kind of cringe, but he knocked down Max Holloway. But Max Holloway got back up. And this is what I think about this. So, the guy with the best chin now, you could arguably say, is Vettori, because he's the only one, and John Jones, who hasn't been knocked down. But then I could also argue that Max Holloway is still up there, but I would probably go with Vettori, especially fighting the bigger guys. But nonetheless, Max Holloway put on like this striking showcase. He made Justin Gaethje look silly. He made him look like he was an amateur out there. And the way he was able to do it is because you'll notice that Trevor Whitman is drilled into Gaethje. I want you to level change. I want you to use the legs. There's even the drill on YouTube, you can find it, where he says how you want to generate power by using the legs, which is right. And if you lower your level and you do a lot of level changing, that can be a negative against a guy like Max Holloway because he lowers his levels to strike to the body, whereas Gaethje's lowering his levels to then come up to the head. So by the time he's coming down, Holloway is reading this because Gaethje's not really got the best footwork, and then is able to jump and kick him into the nose. And as soon as that happens, nose is all busted up. And he's probably in severe pain, but he kind of disguises it. But to be fair, he almost fell out of the octagon after that happened in the round. Hang on, I'm gagging. But anyways, another thing. Apart from Max Holloway being dropped in the 4th round, no one's even talking about it because of how dominant this was. This was almost a 50-45. But you could argue that he lost the 4th round just because of that knockdown. But another thing I liked by Max Holloway is he was able to take these leg kicks and still move. Like, when you see Justin Gaethje leg kick people, it can make them become stationary because it's just so hard. So when you're getting kicked in the leg, you get a dead leg. A bit like what Rakic did to Prochazka. I can't pronounce his name. Yuri Prochazka, that's it, earlier. And also, who would I like to see Max Holloway fight next? In my opinion, I think Holloway's got to look at fighting an Oliveira maybe, if he wants to stay at lightweight. 2 losers on this card. And if he doesn't want to fight Oliveira, go down and fight Ilia Topuria. But then you're going to have people saying that Volkanovski deserves the rematch, which is fair enough because you could arguably say he does. But then that will hold up the division a little bit because Volk's coming off 2 brutal head injuries. So he's going to have to wait longer, putting that division on a waiting list for the belt. So Max Holloway, if he was smart, should stay at lightweight for now and look at that fight of Oliveira. That's for me. I would say that's what he should go for. And for Gaethje, you could argue, what's next for him? Probably just taking these fights for his legacy. Maybe a Chandler rematch in the future. Not now, obviously, because of Conor McGregor and Chandler being announced. But I'm trying to think, who are the guys that Gaethje could fight? I don't want to see him against a Dariush because he will get slept badly. That guy needs a break, honestly. So I'm trying to think, who is one guy that we could give to Gaethje? Mateusz Gamrot? That's a good shout for what we could do. He's looking really good. But again, I think Gaethje could win that with the takedown defense and with the power he's got in his hands to do something. But it was the fact that the last second of the fight, you're thinking, right, we're in the 5th round. Holloway's pointing to the spot, so you know what's going to happen. Ricardo Lamas vibes all over again. And just absolutely just starts going for it. Just swinging, no technique whatsoever. But because Gaethje is so like rocked, tired, concussed at that point, he's just swinging, hoping. He's just swinging and hoping. He was given a chance to get back into that fight. And then with 1 second left, we're talking about Yair Rodriguez against Chan Sung Young type of vibes. Out cold, catches him clean on the chin. Unlike Jamahal Hill, where he fell to the ground like it was the Looney Tunes and the Johnny Walker type of KO, which looked very resonant to that. With this one here, this was one where he just got slept badly in the last second and took so much damage. Like, significant damage. And he does deserve how much he got. Like, he got about 600,000 bonus. But not only 600,000, you've got to think about what the base pay as well. So he's going to get base pay as well as these 2 bonuses. Think about how much money that is. He's walking away with well over $1 million. But then again, obviously, it won't be profit because you have to pay your managers, you have to pay all these type of people, whatever they're owed. So he's not profiting all that money, but he'll definitely profit a lot from that. But for me, I do want to see him fight Topuria, but I know a lot of you want to see Volk. And it just shows you how good Volk is, because how is Volk 50-45 in this guy? And he's coming up a weight class against a very hard hitter and schooling him, making him look easy, when you're seeing guys like Dustin Poirier getting chinned by him in the 2nd round. And you saw that Gaethje was trying to drill these head kicks against Holloway. And remember, he doesn't hold a high guard. But unlike Poirier, Poirier's got good like head movement and his footwork's quite good as well. But it's not the level of Holloway. Holloway's got like this elite footwork where you can throw and he can put you out of place. You saw it with Chan Sung Young. But the only issue we had was him being hit more and more. And I believe it happens against these faster guys. Because you'll notice Yair was hitting him a lot. He's a faster type of guy with his strikes. Volkanovski, a fast type of guy. Justin Gaethje, not too fast, but very heavy-handed. So if he touches you, he doesn't need speed. He can just have like the power. But this just showed you a speed versus power thing. And the kicking and the working to the body, he broke Gaethje down. And then finished him in the 5th round, which I'm glad I picked. But we're going to go into the next fight. Allah Halakets, I don't know how to pronounce that. Arman Tsarukyan against Charles the Bronx Oliveira. Right, can we stop? Like, I can't believe what I'm reading. It makes me put my hand onto my head because Arman Tsarukyan clearly won that fight. All of us wanted Charles Oliveira to win. He's more entertaining than Tsarukyan. He wants to go out there and when he comes up against a dangerous opponent, lay and pray. Like, we didn't see the kickboxing of him. But to be fair, that was a smart leg kick by Oliveira. Drops and jumps onto that guillotine and I'm thinking, we are seconds away from seeing him tap out. But just like Khabib, you put him in a guillotine choke, he is not going to tap. And Oliveira's got one of the tightest squeezes on a guillotine. Like, the amount of people he's done it to and they've tapped out. And you've got Arman Tsarukyan, who's just won't. Like, these Dagestani fighters, well, I can't say all of them, but you know the ones I'm on about, who just don't tap when you put them in these like deep chokes and these situations, and they're just good at grinding through it. And then when he's able to get on top of Oliveira, because Oliveira in mount, if he can't get a submission, he's not going to do much apart from lay and pray either. So we all knew the first round, okay, he'll give it to Oliveira because there was nothing Arman Tsarukyan could do. But it didn't look too good on the ground. He was like holding a position. It didn't really look like he could get a deep choke apart from the guillotine. And he was just mounting, and you just had Arman Tsarukyan trying to explode, use all of that like power and energy to get out of that bottom. And then you go into round two. Round two is the one which impressed me because he did what Makhachev was going to do, or what he did do to Oliveira, but he didn't need to use striking. He just went out there, purely just held him on the ground, landed a few elbows, and I'm thinking, Oliveira, your chin was not the best at times. Like, you can get dropped. I'm thinking these elbows might actually put him out, but Oliveira's just got his back up against the cage. You cannot move. Like, he has his back up against the cage, and he can't really push on the hips to get out because Arman Tsarukyan's holding him tight against the cage. So when you have your opponent up against the cage, it's so hard because how is he going to wrap his legs all the way over the top of his back and get that triangle? It is possible, but it's unlikely when you come up against a guy like Tsarukyan whose grappling is way too dominant. And we saw similar things to what Makhachev did on the ground in terms of neutralising the jiu-jitsu and not allowing him to do anything on the bottom apart from that first round. And then the third round, I'm sorry, I'm not giving Oliveira that round. Like, I wanted him to win that. I really did. Like, if you saw the odds drop live, you would have thought he won that round at that point. But he just held, I believe it was a Das, and there was nothing in it. He was just squeezing, sticking out his tongue, but nothing from it. Like, I know Arman Tsarukyan didn't look like he was moving, and the referee probably should have looked to see what was going on. He didn't. He just sat there and started watching like he had a camera. Like, if you know that Renato meme where he's just holding a camera and taking a photo. It's like a GIF or something. It was like that. He was just standing there watching like he weren't even refereeing the fight. And then people, because of that submission attempt, think he won that fight. No, because it's a submission attempt, but it wasn't a near fight-ending sequence because he held it, but Tsarukyan didn't look like he was in deep trouble, in my opinion. It was a good approach to do because you know that you're probably losing that round, but he didn't win the round because of that. Arman Tsarukyan was boring in that round, but he did just do enough by the grappling. It was so boring and it was like rubbish in that round, but he did what he needed to do to get the job done. So I don't think it's a robbery win. I think he won that, clearly. I think because a lot of us are like Charles Oliveira, way more than Tsarukyan. It's way more entertaining. You can tend to be a bit more biased with what you believe. And you might think I'm being biased now, but I honestly don't think I am with this fight. Because I honestly think that Arman Tsarukyan won due to the fact that he laid and prayed and did minimal amounts of damage. But where was Oliveira's damage? There wasn't none apart from the submission attempt, which isn't damage. That's a submission which, no, you could put it under damage, but wouldn't it be under effective control and effective grappling? So for me, Arman Tsarukyan had all that control, so he had won that round, therefore wins the fight 2 and 3. But for both of them, Arman Tsarukyan should be fighting Makhachev, but they've decided to give it to Poirier. No words. Charles Oliveira, I told you how I think he should fight, and I still stand by that. I think he needs to fight Max Holloway. Because he had a fight before, esophagus injury. It'd be a good rematch to see. You know what? Bo Nickal against Brundage, for as boring as it was, Bo Nickal just did what he needed to do. Like, at points in the fight, his grappling is kind of weird at times because we know him as being like a very good high school grappler, folk style grappling, really good at wrestling. But there was a point in the fight where you just see Cody Brundage just throw him, like ragdoll him. He gets back up to the feet. He doesn't actually get any grappling from that point. He just scrambles back up. But we were really expecting Bo Nickal to go out there and finish him in like round 1 because that's what Bo Nickal does. But remember, well, to be fair with you, he's not even that young. I was about to say he's young. He's 28 years of age. Like, Brundage is the same age as him near enough. Well, maybe not, but maybe a 1 to 2 year age gap because he's going to be 30 very soon. It didn't look too convincing and it was a proper snoozer, and this is probably why people didn't want it on the main card, and we were right. This is why it wasn't, but I don't really care. No matter where it is on the card, at least it happened. And for me, Bo Nickal, Anthony Hernandez. So let's start moving him up now because we're doing the Paddy Pimblett treatment. You're feeding him good fights so you can build him up to make him really good, which he is. But we need to start pushing him higher. So Anthony Hernandez, I believe he called out, did he say Kopylov Anthony Hernandez? I might be wrong, but they're the type of fights I want to look at. Because I think Kopylov, I think he could beat him. But there's also that dangerous threat because he's got good takedown defense and you have to really work hard to get him down. But the folk style grappling will help him work with the working hard to get the takedowns and look to get the finish. But then again, if it comes to striking on the feet, he doesn't stand a chance in my opinion. But I think Anthony Hernandez would be also a very hard fight because he's got very tricky jiu-jitsu. His striking is very unorthodox at times and very effective. Quite durable, apart from, you might want to say, the Kevin Holland fight. He is. And yeah, Cody Brundage, I can't think of an opponent. Back to the prelims on some like random Apex card. Honestly, he's very lucky to be in the UFC. Grateful for this opportunity, he must be, because he just puts his name out there so that when the UFC eventually cut him, there's another promotion for him. But yeah, he fluked his way to beating Jacob Malkoun. Fluked his way. Well, no, he didn't fluke his way against... Yes, he did. He fluked his way against Zachary Reese. Powerbombed him down to the ground when in reality, he was losing that fight. He looked like he was going to get submitted. And he's just got lucky, honestly. And he'll be gone very soon, in my opinion. Right, this fight here with Aleksander Rakic and Jiri Prochazka. This was so painful to watch when I was watching Aleksander Rakic. Like, I don't get fighters where you're winning a fight comfortably. How do you bottle a fight like that? Seriously. Like, you're leg kicking the guy. He can barely walk. He's on one leg. Pereira did the same thing, but obviously Pereira's got a better fight IQ than Rakic. You've injured him. And even in the first round, you were seeing that because Prochazka's always in his face, pressuring him, he looks dangerous. And Prochazka's always dangerous at any point in the fight, especially in the pocket range. And Rakic wanted to be at range. But if you know that Prochazka's coming forward every minute in the fight, why are you not grappling? The grappling wasn't there. I don't know why he didn't. You go out there grappling against a guy with more of a submission threat in Jan Blachowicz, but when you come up against Jiri Prochazka, it's like you want to strike. I don't get the IQ of some fighters, honestly. And no, I didn't put anything on the fight. I'm just saying, like, he could have won that fight. He looked better in the striking. Like, Jiri Prochazka, no head movement, eating these straight punches, but coming forward and throwing one of his own, which Rakic could not take. And then not looking for takedowns. And then at this point, he's desperate. Gets, like, pretty much thrown to the ground like he's in a street fight. No technique or anything by Prochazka. Just throws him down to the ground and ground and pounds him. And this all happens because Rakic is not mixing up takedowns. You had Jiri Prochazka level changing. You are doing well in the striking. He has one leg. Mix it up. Don't stay to just doing your basic eating a punch and then throwing a right cross and trying to engage in a brawl. The worst thing you could do against Prochazka if you're Rakic is engage in a brawl. Because he'll come out with some madness, especially with his hands down, making it hard to see where the punches are. Even though he'll eat some, like he's got bad defense but good offense, you end up getting chinned. And that's what happens. So, Jiri Prochazka's a more entertaining fighter than Rakic, but yep, we've got to go with Jamahal Hill with him, so he's got to fight him. And for Rakic, I believe we're going to have to look at a fight with him and Johnny Walker, honestly. You might as well get that fight booked after he recovers from that broken nose from Ankalaev. Or if you don't want to do that, look at Nikita Krylov. Make one of these matchups. Again, I did tell you that this card was going to go one of two ways. It was going to be catastrophic, which it borderline was. Or, in terms of my picks, by the way, or it was going to go completely perfect. And it has gone horribly wrong, especially with this pick here, with Calvin Kattar to beat Sterling. It had nothing to do with the injury. That's what makes it worse. He just got bullied in there. Even with the striking, Sterling looked more... He didn't rock him, but he was landing at times on him, especially by like throwing kicks and boxing at times. Like that's what Calvin Kattar's meant to be... Not Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar's meant to be good at. And it was the grappling. It was so boring to watch by Aljamain. Like there was a point in the fight where I was like, the referees got to separate them because they were on the cage for so long and it looked like Sterling was stalling and he was using a lot of energy to get the takedowns. For example, he made it like the WWE. Like, he is going to pick him up and pile driver him. You might want to call it a powerbomb. He pile drived his head into the concrete. And if I'm not wrong, I believe there is a rule where what he did there could be illegal, called spiking. When you lift someone up and you drop them onto their neck from that type of position. I'm surprised the referee didn't look into that because you don't really see it happen that often. But I believe that is a rule in the UFC. But he got away with it. But apart from that, no significant injury happened from that. Like if he got paralyzed or some like massive thing like that, then that might have come into consideration. But it didn't, and it was just a pure where is Calvin Kattar's takedown defense type of fight. He just looked off completely, and the over 36 rule won again. Apart from the main event, it is winning so far on the card. So yeah, let me think. I'm not even joking. He should be pushed down early because we know how good he is. Maybe a Josh Emmett would be an interesting fight. It really would. Because we know how good his takedown defense is, but has fought the same thing about Calvin Kattar. Or maybe, if you don't want to do Emmett, look at a Brian Ortega. Even though he might not want to fight that high up. But remember, Sterling was a champion. And he made Calvin Kattar look easy. Shane Burgos couldn't do that. And he's meant to be a good grappler. So, for Calvin Kattar, what type of fight could we look at? I'm not even joking. Arnold Allen rematch maybe? Considering the fact that his leg got blown out in that fight. They're the type of fights we need to look at. Or Diego Lopes? Maybe. I don't know. We'll move on to the next one. Right, Kayla Harrison against Holly Holm. Again, I will watch women fights when they're half decent. When you have a woman who's actually good at fighting, relative to being a woman. Kayla Harrison demolishes Holly Holm. Holly Holm was looking good in the scrambles at times, but she could never get a strong position on Kayla Harrison, and she was just able to bring her down to the ground and just bully her and find the rear naked choke. I don't think there's much to talk about in this fight because I don't think something was anything like overly technical. It was just watching a man fight a woman. Because you know how Kayla Harrison's built with all the muscles. She looks like she's juiced to the gills and has a physique bigger than some of the men in the bantamweight and flyweight division. She could pass as a man in terms of her physique. So yeah. Amanda Nunes maybe? Probably not. Holly Holm, retire. Right, Sodiq Yusuff against Diego Lopes. I feel like an absolute fraud for picking Sodiq Yusuff round one. Look how much that backfired. Diego Lopes is actually proper legit. I've picked him every other fight, but this I thought, look at how strong he started off against a... He's kind of old now, Edson Barbosa, but he looks good at points in fights. And looks like he's about to finish him in the first round. And then you have Diego Lopes, who is so wild, running into him. But they both get into the clinch, and Sodiq Yusuff's chin is done. It is finished. I know you might say that he's young, kind of, but I do not rate him as highly as I used to. Like Alex Caceres, who made it competitive with him, and he's a journeyman at the end of the day. So the fact that Diego Lopes just went out there and ran through him in the first round, I should have been able to predict this, but I don't know why I didn't. I just thought maybe going with the underdog for this fight, considering all the things that go into it with Diego Lopes not fighting like a pure striker in a long time and fighting a bunch of grapplers. Like Anderson Brito actually held Diego Lopes down and did a better job than the likes of Mozart Evloev, it looked like at times. Like he wasn't getting caught in all of these submission attempts and almost put away. So Diego Lopes for me, there's a bunch of fights you could make with him. Like I know I said Arnold Allen should have a rematch with Kattar, but maybe you could push Diego Lopes into a fight with Arnold Allen because he needs them higher ranked fights now. I don't think Josh Emmett yet. I think we could look at that later on if he wins the next fight. But at this rate, like, are we looking at a title run for Diego Lopes? Can he make it all that way? Hopefully he can, because he's a very entertaining fighter to watch. But it's all about, will he be able to do it? But his record just keeps improving. It really does. So, for Sodiq Yusuff, who should he fight next? I'm at the point where, do we look at an unranked fight for him at this point? Anderson Brito. After he's had his next fight, maybe him. Renato Moicano versus Jalin Turner. This fight here, Jalin Turner absolutely bottled. How the hell do you knock the guy down? And I know you want the 300k bonus because it could change your life a bit. Walk off. Why do that? Like, he should have done it and then walked off and like looked at him before walking off. Like, you'll notice that fighters, when they do the walk off KO, they will drop them, but they'll watch their body fall to the floor and be done before walking off. They don't just drop the opponent, turn their back immediately as they've thrown the punch, and then walk off. No. And then you're giving him time to recover, and you've already struggled in that round. I don't think it was smart to do that. That was a negative fight IQ moment, honestly, because we know that Moicano, his IQ, I made a video on it, his IQ is very good when it comes to grappling. Like, he can get down to your hips so fast, his entries are so good. He doesn't just wildly shoot in. He's always got like a punch or something to set up that takedown. And I regret not picking him, because Jalin Turner has showed in the past that he can be held down on the ground by smaller guys. Matt Frivola, ... And then you had Moicano. Like, Moicano's not a guy known for serious power. But I'm kind of glad he won, because he's like one of those guys in the rankings who is quite high up, but he's like really good. Like, you've got Jalin Turner, you look at his record, he's now 14-8. Like, his record doesn't look great. But then when you think of his style, he is really good. So it's a thing of like, he would be so much better if he was just a kickboxer. Honestly. Like, he has got jiu-jitsu, but that only comes when he knocks people down. And he is very gifted. He bullies people because of the weight. But he can't use his weight to stop takedowns, and he struggles when the pressure gets to him. Like, when someone's able to get into his face, he really, really struggles to deal with it. Like, Dan Hooker was able to walk him down in the second round and have good success, because he gets a bit tired and he doesn't quit, but he fades. Maybe it's the weight cut. Maybe it's time for him to move up, because him being like tired, that's got to be either a cardio issue or something to do with his weight cut. So I think move up. Lightweight, yes, you enjoy fighting these guys who weigh less, but it's obviously affecting him, because he can't deal with the guys who have like a high level of pressure. He really can't. So I believe a move to welterweight would be good. He did struggle there a bit before fighting guys like Vicente Luque, but I wouldn't mind seeing him fight like a Buckley at welterweight. That would be a very interesting fight to see. But I doubt it will happen. But Moicano, very good win. Good fighter to watch. Good leg kicks. And a very high fight IQ when it comes to getting takedowns and stuff. And entertaining when it comes to talking. One fighter with an actual good personality. So yeah, I'm kind of glad he won, even though I didn't pick him. Bobby Green against Jim Miller. That was painful to watch. I did think it would have went one of these two ways, even though I did think Jim Miller might get a KO. The first round, it looked like he was on the verge of it. Like, Bobby Green's quite chinny as well. If you can land on his chin, his legs start to go a little bit, and that was probably his brain getting them flashbacks from what Jalin Turner did. But then you'll notice that Jim Miller, he's not that fast. He's just very gritty. Like, he can bite into his gum shield, take a punch, come forward, and hit you with a harder combination. Like, he hits harder than Bobby Green. Bobby Green's striking is just way too slick, hands down. You can barely see where the punches are coming from. And good head movement. Again, I said his footwork's a bit overrated. He was better in this fight, but I still believe his footwork's quite overrated. His head movement's good though. And just schooled Miller. Dropped him. Like, Miller's a hard guy to finish, but if there was another round in that fight, he would have been going out. And I believe he should have got a bonus, honestly, but Dana White doesn't really give people like the prelims, them type of big bonuses. It doesn't really happen. It's usually given the bigger guys in terms of like main card and stuff like that. Unless you do something very spectacular in the prelims, it's very hard to get a bonus. So Bobby Green deserved the bonus, but he didn't get it. Deiveson Figueiredo against Garbrandt. You know what? Before he was getting the takedowns, he didn't look too good on the feet. Garbrandt looked like he was beating him in the striking, but this is where the championship mindset happened from him, and being more high IQ than Garbrandt, shooting him for takedowns, and he really worked hard for it. It wasn't one where it was lucky or anything. Garbrandt's a very hard guy to take down, let alone submit. He got caught in a deep arm triangle and he wouldn't tap out. He was using loads of explosion to get out, and eventually survives, gets mounted, and then eventually gets his back taken and submitted. So it just shows you how good Figueiredo's jiu-jitsu is, which we've known. And in the bantamweight division, I think he's going to be really good. Honestly, he's moving up the rankings now. Maybe a Song Yadong would be a good fight to give him after his eyes have healed up a little bit. That's the type of fight I want to see. And for Cody Garbrandt, it's just depressing, really. It really is for him, because he's not going anywhere in the division. His career's kind of it's just up, down, up, down. He's never going to break back into top 10, I don't think. So I'm trying to think, what type of fight can you give him now? Ricky Simone? But then again, isn't he way too low in the rankings to be offered that fight? But he just lost to Mario Batista. There you go. Maybe give him a Mario Batista or Ricky Simone, one of the two. Because one of them fights was meant to happen, but it didn't end up happening. So maybe do that. But then again, you're giving him a push lower down in the rankings, which you might argue he don't deserve after losing this fight here. And he's just beating a bum in Brian Kelleher. So, good first round. He looked sharp on the feet. But this is just one where he just was not at that level anymore. So yeah, that's it. Good card. Probably make another video in the week talking about some of the upcoming fights. We've got McGregor, Paulo Costa against Sean Strickland, and all of that type of stuff. Right, so yeah, hang on. Right. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.